Number 25, Batman. This is the original Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson Batman movie. It is still one of my favorite superhero movie of all time. That's right, if you've been watching this and going, where are all the Marvel movies? There are no Marvel movies. They didn't pan out. Some of them got close, but none of them cracked the top 100. Batman, however, there was no way I wasn't going to put this movie in there. Number 24, Down Periscope. It's a weird comedy about a nuclear submarine first mate who is either going to be failed and put on desk duty because he's not going to get promoted to captain, or he has to crew a diesel sub in a war game. He chooses to crew the diesel sub and is given the worst crew you could imagine. It's a pretty straightforward plot, but Kelsey Grammer does a great job knocking this home. Rob Schneider plays his executive officer, which would be the first mate, who is very by the book and can't figure out why he is put on this ship full of rejects. Number 23, The Fifth Element. We get another Bruce Willis movie for you, but this is such a great Bruce Willis movie. You get great architecture throughout the entire film. It's such great design, and the story is so good. If you've never seen it before, basically we're in the future, far, far in the future. And we've made contact with alien races, and it's come time where a giant black ball of death, planet of death, is coming to destroy the world, and only the Fifth Element can save us. Bruce Willis is brought in to attempt to help the Fifth Element along because she literally falls into his lap, or through the ceiling of his taxi cab. It's just a really good movie. Again, this is kind of hard to explain, kind of a movie, but it's so good. Gary Oldman plays the physical villain. He doesn't play the big black planet, but he plays the physical villain on Earth named Zorg, and he gives a tremendous performance. This is definitely a movie worth seeing, and it is definitely proper placement on this list. Number 22, Ghostbusters. That's right, the original Busters of the Ghosts takes position number 22. It's an Ivan Reitman film. It is a lot of fun. From what it originally started off as, I think it turned out way better than what they were originally wanted to do with this movie. It's a lot of fun. It's about a group of people who begin to capture ghosts in New York City. Again, I feel like this one doesn't require a lot of synopsis because it's such a well-known movie. It is so good. If you've never seen it, watch both of them. You know, Ghostbusters 2 was further down on the list, but go see both of them. They are worth seeing. They are super enjoyable. And then go see Ghostbusters 2020 when that comes out, because hopefully it will be just as good, because Ernie Hudson, Dan Aykroyd, and Bill Murray are coming back for it, and I'm really hoping it's going to be as good. Number 21, The Muppet Movie. I already said I'm a huge Muppet fan, and where would I be as a huge Muppet fan without The Muppet Movie? It is a road trip movie. It's also super, original because it's a road trip movie with puppets. Not even like Big Bird type puppets, although Big Bird does make an appearance. We're talking about like hand puppets that really, it's way more of a struggle to get these shots done, but they still pulled it together. They still pulled it off in a tremendous way. It again has some great music. Number 20, The Thing. This is the John Carpenter version of this movie. There is the prequel that was made a couple of years ago, and then of course this is technically a remake of The Thing from Another Planet, or Thing from Another World, which I've never seen. It's also based on a short story, which oddly enough this movie is way closer to the short story than apparently the previous movie was. But anyways, it takes place in the Antarctic, in a U.S. outpost where a dog shows up, and a pair of Norwegians in a helicopter are shooting at the dog. The Norwegians end up blowing themselves up with dynamite, and the dog is taken in. You find out the dog is actually not a dog, but an alien, shapeshifter. And the question arises, who's an alien and who's human, with these few men on this Antarctic outpost, and the alien trying to escape, because it doesn't want to be in the Antarctic. One, it can freeze up there, because it already had, and two, there's not a lot of things to take over. It is a great movie. It is a horror movie, so, it's buyer beware on that one. But it is such a good movie. Number 19, The Producers. This is the musical version of this movie, with Nathan Lane, Matthew Broderick, Uma Thurman, and Will Ferrell. Again, I love this movie. This was made in 2005, released in 2005. I've always enjoyed the music to the producers. The original film is also really good, but I prefer this one so much more. Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick pop as they bring their Broadway characters to the silver screen. It's a very good, well-done version of that musical. Number 18, my favorite Kevin Smith film of them all, Clerks, the original. Now, we had Waiting way down on the list, if you even remember back that far. There was Waiting, and this is basically the same thing except with convenience store clerks. You have a pair of clerks, one who works at a convenience shop, and the other one works at a video rental store. I would love to work in a video rental store. Anyways, and it's just their madcap day. It is a black and white film because they couldn't afford color film stock, but it is a very good film. Number 17, The Death of Stalin. Alright, it's The Death of Stalin. If you've never heard of this movie, again, I'm not surprised on that one. It came out last year, so 2018, around the same time in this area as Ready Player One, because I actually saw it immediately after going to see the aforementioned movie. It's basically about when Joseph Stalin died and what happened in Russia at that moment, except with all the comedy amped up. You have Steve Buscemi, Jeffrey Tambor, Michael Palin, among others, playing these parts, and none of them put on a Russian accent, mainly because the comedy was going to be way better if they just let them talk in whatever, accents they already had. So everyone just talks normally, and it's really fun, it really engages you, and it just keeps going. It is such a good movie, and I so enjoyed it when I saw it. And I still enjoy it every time I watch it to this day. Number 16, Dick Tracy. It is based on a comic strip about Dick Tracy, a detective for the police force in an unknown town who deals with a rogues gallery of villains, which are all in this movie because Warren Beatty went, there is no way in hell they're letting me make a sequel, therefore I'm putting them all in this one movie. But it's done very well because he kind of creates it, because they were all, unlike Batman, where they're all like, haha, I'm the Riddler, and I'm the Joker, and it's hard to make them work together because they're all kind of their own thing. These guys all kind of fall into that category of mobsters, even though they might, like, one of them was called Prune Face, and he has a prune face. But they're all still mobsters, so it was really easy to set up a hierarchy of mobsters, where Big Boy Caprice is at the top, and then it slowly funnels down. So he was able to set up a hierarchy, which really worked well for establishing all of these villains. Number 15, The Road to Wellville. This movie is a lot easier to explain. It's just figuring out how to word it. It takes place in Battle Creek, Michigan, at the actual sanitarium that was in Battle Creek, Michigan, that people used to attend as kind of like a health spa. Anthony Hopkins plays John Kellogg, the inventor of Kellogg's. Not the one who actually sold it, that was his brother. He was the one that invented the cornflake. John Kellogg was a huge believer in body health and that you shouldn't eat meat ever because it will destroy you. He had a lot of... Look up John Kellogg. It's a very interesting read. I've done it. It is based on a book. I never finished the book. But it's a really good movie. It looks at some people who are staying at and near this sanitarium in Battle Creek, including Matthew Broderick and Bridget Fonda, who is a couple who are staying at the sanitarium. John Cusack plays a man who goes into that town to try to make his own brand of cornflakes and is just failing at every turn. And Dana Carvey plays John Kellogg's adopted son. Number 14, Radioland Murders. I've always enjoyed this movie. Basically, a new radio station has opened to rival the big three. That's ABC, CBS, and NBC. This one is radio station WBN. It's going live, and they're running a full night of live programming. When all of a sudden, staff members begin to die. And there's a writer who is writer for their shows, because you used to do shows live with scripts. One of the writers begins getting blamed for these murders because he happens to be around at every single one of them. It is such a fun movie. Number 13, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? This is based on a book called Who Censored Roger Rabbit, which is also incredibly good and nothing like the movie. But it's an incredibly good book and it's an incredibly good movie. Basically, it takes place in a world where cartoon characters aren't just things scribbled on pages. They are real beings that have their own town called Toontown. And Roger Rabbit is one of them. He is an actor, and eventually he gets accused of murdering one of the heads of the animation studios who happened to be playing patty cake with his wife the night before. And no, that's not a metaphor for anything. She's actually just playing patty cake with him. And he's being chased around. He looks for the aid of a detective named Eddie Valiant, who is human. And he's being chased by Judge Doom, the judge of Toontown, judge, jury, and executioner of the town, and his weasel assistant. It's a great movie, so much fun, a lot of amazing comedy. Number 12, The Belko Experiment. This is a movie that basically a company is set up in Argentina, in a very remote area of Argentina, and one day they send all the locals home and only allow in the 80 employees who come from America and other parts of the world, who all have security chips planted in their heads in case they ever get kidnapped. The building goes into lockdown, and a voice tells them that they need to begin to kill each other, a certain number in a certain period of time, and it would begin to whittle down the people. And it's really looking at how these people handle this situation. Number 11, Spaceballs. Who doesn't love Spaceballs? It's Mel Brooks' parody of Star Wars and other space epics. It's a really fun film. Rick Moranis, Bill Pullman, John Candy all have amazing performances in this movie. And Mel Brooks plays two roles and he does them both very well. It's a parody of Star Wars primarily, with bits and pieces of other sci-fi films sprinkled in. It's a lot of good comedy. I think it is Mel Brooks' most superior film. People will disagree with me, but that is my thought on it, and that's why it made number 11. Number 10, Cradle Will Rock. This is a great movie. I love this movie. It looks at the Depression era, specifically art during the Depression, and art in general. This movie, actually, I would never have seen if I hadn't taken one of the classes I took in college. Buying the movie was part of the required reading. It was handled like a textbook. So I bought it, I watched it, I fell in love with this movie. It boasts a great cast featuring Bill Murray, John Cusack, Hank Azaria, Carrie Ewells, Angus McFadden, Joan Cusack, Bill Murray, I already said Bill Murray, Susan Sarandon, Vanessa Redgrave, John Turturro. It is a great cast that was assembled. Tim Robbins wrote and directed this movie. Basically, he took a couple events from the Depression era, or involving around art, and he kind of strung them together. The big one, however, was the production of Cradle Will Rock, which was a musical that was put on during that era, during the height of unionism at that time, which was a very pro-union musical, and what happened, and how it was perceived by the people as it was happening. Number 9, Bad Times at the El Royale. This is a movie that got really, really pandered when it came out last year, 2018, but I enjoyed this movie so much. It kind of takes a look at the Manson family, but from a completely different look. It takes place entirely at a hotel, the El Royale, which sits on the state line between California and Nevada. The characters go there. It's not a really populated motel, and it's basically, you get to learn about each of these people who are in this motel, why they're there, and how it connects to this bigger picture. Number 8, Grosse Pointe Blank. This is yet another John Cusack movie. John Cusack stars as a hitman who no longer wants to be a hitman. He's growing old, he's growing stale from what he's doing, and his 10-year high school reunion is coming up. He is given a job that requires him to go back to Grosse Pointe, where his high school was located, where he might as well attend the reunion anyways, since he's there. He reconnects with his old flame, played by Minnie Driver, and he comes into conflict with another hitman, played by Dan Aykroyd. Alan Arkin is also in the movie, playing his psychiatrist, who does not want to be a psychiatrist now that he knows he's a hitman. It is a great comedy. It has some good action in it, and a lot of strong performances. Number 7, Noises Off. You want to talk about madcap comedies? Here's one for you. It's based on a play. A really good play, by the way. Basically, it's a 3-act play, and the movie is also structured very similarly, where the first act is the final dress rehearsal for opening night of this new show called Nothing On. Basically, everything is going wrong. The set wasn't put up right, so now they're putting up the set, and you're finding out the actors still have a lot of questions. They don't know what they're doing. Michael Caine plays the director of this show, directing such great actors as John Ritter, Carol Burnett, I can't believe my mind, Christopher Reed, and Denholm Elliott. This is actually Denholm Elliott's final film. If you don't know who that is, IMDb him. He is a good actor. Anyways, it's their final dress rehearsal. It then cuts to when they're on the road before a matinee, and things have just degraded and everything has gotten worse before you get to the final act, which takes place later on down the road, and you're actually watching this debacle unfold as it's happening on stage. It is a great movie. It is a hilarious comedy. It boasts strong performances, and if you've never seen it, check it out. It is a great movie. It is hilarious. Number 6, Little Shop of Horrors. This is the musical version. Back in the day when you had to rent movies, if you really wanted to watch a lot of them, I rented this movie over and over again. I probably wore that video store copy of this tape out because I watched this movie so many times. I love this musical. I love everything about it. And I would totally learn to sing to play Seymour Krelborn or any of the other characters in this show. Basically, it's about a little nerdy guy who's in love with a beautiful woman who works in the same flower shop as him, but he's too nerdy to ask her out. I get that feeling, Seymour. I really do. Anyways, one day Seymour finds a plant, and it turns out that it grows off of blood. So he begins feeding the plant. And it grows bigger and bigger until it requires more and more food. It's a great musical. It's based on a black and white Roger Corman film called The Little Shop of Horrors. But this is so much better. It's directed by Frank Oz, which is awesome because basically the plant by the end of the movie is a giant Muppet. We're coming back to Muppets. It's a giant Muppet. And it is just amazing. It is amazing how they did it. It is a great movie. And if you've never seen it, check it out. It is a lot of fun. Number 5, Big Trouble. Here's a fun Barry Sonnenfeld film based on a book by Dave Barry. It is a great book. I love the book. Read the book, but watch the movie as well. Basically, it takes place in Miami, Florida, and it's just about the zany interlockings of various characters. Tim Allen stars. He plays an ad agent who is down on his luck, whose son goes to high school and is put into a game called Killer, where he has to take a squirt gun and squirt one of the other students in the school. He goes out to do that one night, and it is the same night a pair of hitmen are going to kill the student's father. And madness ensues that carries over as it brings these characters together until the inevitable ending. This movie, it's so funny, it is so good, and it had to get overlooked when it came out because it came out in 2002. Shortly after, and it features at the end of the movie a nuclear bomb on a plane. So it's perfectly understand why this movie got overshadowed back when it first came out, but now it's 2019. If you've never seen it, check it out. It's got a great cast. It's a hilarious movie, and it's not that long. Number 4, The World's End. This is the 5th movie by Edgar Wright, and this is the 5th movie on the list by Edgar Wright. This is actually his 4th movie that he made. And it is the last movie in what is called the Blood and Ice Cream trilogy that started with Shaun of the Dead and moved on to Hot Fuzz. And this is the only series that all the entries made it onto this list because they are all very good movies. But this one I've always found to be the best. It is a sci-fi film. Basically, a group of friends come back together to head back to their old English town where there are 12 pubs. And one night they are going to have a pint at every pub on what is called the Golden Mile. Unfortunately, the town has changed since they left the town years prior when they graduated high school. Number 3, Clue. Take the classic Parker Brothers board game and turn it into a movie. You'd think it'd be awful, but this movie is so good. You have your 6 characters from the game, plus Mr. Body, who shows up and is quickly dispatched. After the 6 weapons have been put into a cabinet, the players are then out to figure out who killed Mr. Body with what, but at least they know where he died, because it's where his body is. Everything is laid out. The game board is there, everything you expect from the board game Clue is there, plus so much more. It is such a great movie, it's a classic, and if you've never sat down and watched Clue, do it. It is definitely worth your time. You'll never see a better movie based on a board game. Number 2, Murder on the Orient Express. This is the Kenneth Branagh version that came out in 2017. I'm amazed at how well this movie was done. The book is so good as well. If you've never read the book, read the book. It's worth it. But this movie is so well done. It is so well paced. Every actor does their role so splendidly. It is definitely a movie worth watching. And worth watching again. And again and again. And I've seen it. I have watched it a lot since I first got it. Since I first saw it in theaters. It is such a good movie. It's one I'm never ashamed of putting on. And in fact, I actually have the movie poster for it, both in my house and the exact same poster in my office at work. That is how much I love this movie. Number 1, Gremlins 2, The New Batch. I know, what the crap is wrong with me? My favorite movie of all time is a sequel. A sequel! But it is. I love this movie. I've loved this movie since I was a kid, and I can't remember a time where I wouldn't want to watch this movie. I tend not to watch it all the time just because I have so many other movies. I have so much else I want to do, but anytime I go, I'm watching Gremlins 2, I'm going to watch it. I bought a VHS player in the last year so I could watch the VHS copy of this movie I own. I am still looking for a Laserdisc player so I can do the same. It's one of those things. I love this movie. It is so much fun. It picks up after the first one, where now Gizmo is back in New York in Chinatown. His owner dies, and he ends up going to the Clamp Tower Center, which is this great automated building that has TV studios inside of it, and tours, and basically it's like a city in a skyscraper. Eventually, inevitably, the Gremlins are created and they wreak havoc on this skyscraper. It is a hilarious movie. The Gremlins really get diversified as they become electric, full of vegetables. One of them actually gains the ability to speak English. One of them turns into a woman. One of them turns into a gargoyle who's also given sunblock so he can fly in the sun and not die. It is such a good movie. Most of the original cast comes back, which is also really cool. This is my all-time favorite movie, and I'm not ashamed of it. Gremlins 2: The New Batch is an amazing film. If you've never seen it, watch it. Watch the first one as well. It is also really good. So, this has been my top 100 movies. Thank you for sitting down and watching all of this video, or videos, however this ends up being edited together. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave comments if you have questions. If you want to see more, please leave comments about that too. I have no problem doing other lists. That'll probably be much shorter than this. Alright, well thank you, and have a good whatever you're doing. Talk to you later.